Charlie Kirk is no longer with us, and if you'd like to speak to me about that, you can call the number on the screen. I'm experimenting with a little bit of live phone-in radio style broadcasting. Let's have a listen to some of Charlie Kirk. This was his conversation with Ben Shapiro quite recently, and he brought up the topic of ethnic cleansing.
Israel wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people would accuse Israel of wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people in the Israeli government are saying, again, it's all over the place, right? You have opinions all over. In your opinion, what would a good outcome 5 years from now be, and how does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
So, ethnic cleansing, the idea, presumably, that population movement is equivalent to ethnic cleansing. I think ethnic cleansing is a term that's been fairly recently coined to describe population movement during war. And the reality is that's been ongoing for literally all of human history. The idea that Israel is, quote unquote, forcing people out of the Gaza Strip, that is not the stated policy of the Israeli government. The idea is if people want to leave, they can, but they're not being forced to leave. Again, moving people out of heavily urbanized areas that are honeycombed with terrorist booby traps pretty much everywhere is not the same thing as, quote unquote, ethnic cleansing. And I think that ethnic cleansing is very often used as sort of a softer form of the genocide attack. The idea being that Israel is trying to kill everyone, which of course is not true. As far as your earlier question about what we believe from the media, one of the things that I find kind of astonishing in some of the folks on the right who are highly critical of Israel is actually the lack of the lack of skepticism when it comes to legacy media. Legacy media are radically anti-Israel overall. The New York Times can certainly not be accused of being a pro-Israel outlet. It'd be very difficult to make the accusation that the Associated Press, which has worked hand in glove with Hamas for years, or Reuters, that these are wildly pro-Israel outlets, and yet when it comes to the reporting, it seems to be sort of the opposite.
Ben,
so the perception the legacy media is like owned by the Jews.
I was going to say, Ben, come on. You Jews own the media, Ben. So, I mean, come on. As you can tell by all the wonderful headlines you guys get.
Well, I mean, the accusation that we own the media has not prevented, the Daily Wire from employing people who radically disagree with me on all of these matters. I mean, I don't agree with Matt Walsh on foreign policy. Matt obviously is a major host over at Daily Wire, and that's just my shop. And I'm overtly pro-Israel. Right? I mean, I'm not making any bones about this. I'm a Jew and I'm a Zionist. I'm not going to pretend that to say otherwise would be absolutely silly. To suggest that some sort of atheistic Jewish person by birth who does not care about Judaism or Israel owning the New York Times means the New York Times is pro-Israel is to ignore literally every bit of coverage they have ever done for my entire lifetime.
We're running out of time here, but just last question on this, Ben. I know this might be a tougher question, but Bibi said this quote. I didn't like how he said this. I'll be honest. You can't be MAGA if you're anti-Israel. I don't like it for a couple reasons. How did you analyze that statement from Bibi?
I mean, I think that there is the ungenerous way of interpreting that and then the generous way of interpreting that. So the ungenerous way is to suggest that you have to hold a particular position on every Israeli governmental activity in order to be MAGA, which of course is not true. I mean, you can disagree from the right or from the left with Bibi's policies, and you can still be plenty MAGA. I think the idea that Bibi is putting out there is that if you are taking Hamas's side against Israel in a conflict, it is very difficult to align that with the stated positions of the Trump administration or what President Trump himself is doing right now.
So that's Ben Shapiro really pushing back on a couple of things there. Firstly, Charlie Kirk brought up the fact that Israel is pushing to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and Ben kind of said, well, who hasn't done a little bit of ethnic cleansing over the years? In with the chat, we've got Nova Shadow. Good evening to you. And Lily. Hello. Hello to you both. Feel free to phone the number if you want to speak on air. And then the quote from Benjamin Netanyahu that you can't be MAGA if you're not pro-Israel. Well, isn't Make America Great Again meant to be about being America first? And that was what Charlie Kirk claimed to be about. And although he was a very strong supporter of Israel, he seemed to be suggesting, well, let's get our priorities right. And he and Ben Shapiro, good friends, but they kind of clashed a little bit there. Let's listen to someone reacting against the sympathy for Charlie Kirk, and I can't describe this person, but I would imagine they might have the. Well, let's just listen. Let's listen to the voice only.
The sympathy for Charlie Kirk is fucking weird. Seems to be
Sorry
this
about the
weird
language.
emphasis on taking the moral high ground, and that you are somehow a better person if you're like, I feel bad for his family. This is the world he wanted and the world he was building. This is a white supremacist who wanted both of us dead. He was shot in the middle of saying something transphobic about trans people, and yet you want to have sympathy for him.
No sympathy for Charlie Kirk, and of course he was a long-time supporter of, well, against gun control. He thought everyone should have the right to have a gun, and he believed that a few people losing their lives at the hands of a gun is a small price to pay for the right to bear arms, and he did lose his life at the hands of a gun. I'm not sure if any amount of gun control would have prevented the kind of professional hit that it seemed to be that took him out. Scott James is saying the evil left. What do you mean by that, Scott James? Are you saying that the people that took his life were on the left and were evil? Possibly. He was on the right, so presumably someone that took him out was on the left. Charlie Kirk may have had many, many enemies. He was a critic of the US supporting Ukraine. So we know that the Ukrainians at some point had a list of people whose lives they were intending to take, if I can put it that way. So it could be a Ukrainian supporter had something against him. He is very critical of the LGBTQ movement. It could be someone from the LGBTQ community that wanted to take him out.
You don't have to like
We don't
to
know.
mess
Omar X is also around. He might be in the chat. Omar, feel free to give me a call. Amar is arguing it was LGBTQ community. Could be. We don't know. Whoever it was that took him out did it from 200 yards away with a single shot to the neck. Look, I am not a fan, or I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk in the sense that I didn't agree with a lot of what he said, but I found him entertaining. And for God's sake, the guy had a family. He's a family man. You're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to be incorrect, even if he's completely wrong about the things that he said about Gaza, for example. That doesn't give anyone the right to take his life. Amar is saying the bullet had pro-trans engraved on it. So apparently the bullets that were found at the scene conveniently had pro-trans messaging on them. Is that really what you'd do if you were a trans activist and you wanted to take his life? Would you bother to do that? Or would you do that if you were somebody that wanted to make it look like you were a trans activist? I don't know. It seems a bit much. It was probably Russia or Iran. The other theory that's doing the rounds is this footage where these military hand signals. There's a man behind Charlie Kirk in the last moments of his life who's making funny sort of hand signals and holding a phone, and then their fateful moment occurs. Is that just people looking for something when it's not really there? But some people are arguing that these are some kind of hand signals suggesting the moment for it to be done. Here is Charlie Kirk spewing hateful, racist rhetoric. If you didn't think Charlie Kirk had a racist bone in his body, maybe have a listen to this one.
What do I do? I get dirty every single year. I'm like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Wow. So that's a quote from Charlie Kirk. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, whoa, boy, I hope he's qualified. Does that sound racist to you? I don't think it's racist enough to provoke someone to want to take his life. Look, I don't think that you should take anybody's life, but someone has. Is this the type of remarks that made someone angry enough to do it? We don't know.
Because of DEI, it begs the question, when you see a black pilot, you wonder, you say, I hope they are qualified.
Okay, so he's elaborating there. DEI, the Department for Equity and Inclusion. So he was of the opinion that this would mean that underqualified people would end up in certain roles just because of their race. Does that make it okay to make a comment like that? It puts it slightly in context.
If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? It almost creates thought patterns that are not necessarily. No one really cares when it's HR managers. No one cared when it was, just kind of paper shufflers or even engineers. But now when it's like, wait, hold on a second. You're going to remove my appendix and you're a black lesbian.
There you go. Again, having a pop at this DEI. Does it make him racist? Maybe. The other issue is, of course, his recent shift in opinion. Meghan and Charlie Kirk push back against Israel supporters demanding their unconditional support. And someone called Harrison H. Smith posted, I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will take his life if he turns against them. All right, that's not saying anything concrete, but someone posted that in recent days, claiming that Charlie was fearful for his life. Here's another, and here he is speaking to Meghan.
The behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Meghan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, why are you? What am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But, like, some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Meghan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You're at both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Meghan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Meghan. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say, the people that are attacking me are in a hyper-paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white, and you're a hammer looking for a nail. So I'm trying to be charitable, Meghan. Literally, I'm trying to cut as much slack as I can, right? They go, okay, what would it be like if all of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern of behavior similar to what my grandparents saw in 1930s Germany online? How would I behave? So that's like my charitable kind of overcompensation spirit. At the same time, I'm like, but it's not defensible to be dumb, right?
Yeah.
So
and it's offensive. It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about this? Well, has it gone on too long? Like, is it time to wrap it up? And the thing about Epstein is just so bizarre. I don't know who he was an agent for. It might have been Israel or an asset, or it might have been nobody. But we're allowed to speculate about that. It's like there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported, and they're up against a sea of Islamic totalitarianism, and we should be cheering for them, right? Because they're up against barbarians and monsters, and we want them to win. However, here is Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk combined probably 30 million social media followers, like pretty, right? And you and I have been holding this down, and you probably get the negative, oh, you're just shilling for Israel, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what's right regardless of the feedback, right? But then all of a sudden, like, I host a person that I moderate the debate of, my right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate, and my moral character is being put into question. And so I think it's a hyper paranoid, like, we're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice. But it goes to the point where, if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megyn?
So that's Charlie Kirk reacting to the recent criticism he had from Israel supporters, almost like saying, look, I support Israel, but I have to be American first. And that didn't seem to be good enough for some people, and he was accused of anti-Semitism. Just watching that clip, I was reminded of a clip I saw from Charlie. I don't have it with me now, but when he was sort of denying the existence of the Palestinian people, and he was saying to a Palestine supporter, well, what is a Palestinian? At what point does someone become a Palestinian? He was trying to deny the existence of Palestine. And he said, what ethnicity is a Palestinian? And the reply was, well, they're Arab. And he goes, oh, right, so, well, just then any Arab can be a Palestinian, or a Palestinian is similar to any other Arab, as if this somehow sort of undermines the concept of there being a Palestinian identity. But of course, you don't just have to be an Arab to be a Palestinian. There are Armenian Palestinians, funny enough, Palestinians of Armenian background. There are many different religious groups within Palestine. And for someone who is an American first, what ethnicity is an American? They are not one particular ethnicity, although perhaps he would regard the founding fathers and the original creators of the American state as being white European Christians, and maybe he wanted America that was more white American and Christian. But as I say, it's not a reason to take someone's life. James McIntyre is saying it was a professional job. James, have you got any insight into this? Are you a military man? I know nothing about weapons, but 200 yards away, to take him out with one shot like that to the neck. And I saw the video. I kind of wish I didn't see it. You could never post it on YouTube. It'd be taken down straight away. But to see that moment, yeah, it's quite horrific. One of those things that you can't unsee. But if we want to be journalists, if we want to document these horrific events, what can we do other than watch them? But yeah, 200 yards away, one shot. I've heard people say that that technique, that style, is also employed on the battlefield by certain military. I don't know. When Trump took that shot in the ear, were they aiming for his neck and he just sort of turned to the side? I guess your earlobe would be in line with your neck. Trump's lucky that he has that habit of turning around. There was a lot of speculation about that incident as well. Inside job, was it faked? Was it fake blood? And of course, in the image we have in front of us, Charlie is wearing a t-shirt with that moment on it. I'm going to try this video clip. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but let's try.
Is that Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here. Epstein was not some sort of whiz-kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet.
Right. So, as you all know, Jeffrey Epstein took his own life. And that story has never gone away. And other people involved with that case, involved with his name, have also taken their own life. Maybe it's best not to mention him. Dazzler is saying, it was a crazy nutter that spends their time in their mum and dad's basement, bashing computer keys all day and all night. It was an amateur's shot, but at the end of the day, a human being passed away. You really think it was an amateur shot? Oh, well, I was a very lucky amateur, but I'm glad that you're envisaging them living with a happily married mum and dad. Fangs is having a go at someone in the chat. His wife and kids are now without a father, R.I.P. Dazzler, I have to agree with you on that one. Very, very sad. Look, you can disagree with someone. We've all got different opinions, haven't we? And maybe he said some hateful things that I disagree with. But it's awful to see someone, a family man, lose their life at the young age of, what was he, 31? 32, something like that. Let's have a little listen to some clips from Charlie. This is someone's put this together, saying Charlie reminded us that a life of courage and virtue isn't easy, but it's worth living. Let's have a little listen. Thanks for joining me, by the way. I'm going to try and do a few more broadcasts like this, if I can.
What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. Here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day. And focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty. You don't have justice. You don't have beauty. You don't have wonder. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it.
Every human being, I believe, is made in the image of the divine, is sacred, is unique, and if we get away from this principle as we have, we not only have moral degradation, we not only have the collapsing society around us, but it's bad for that being itself. That being itself is unique. That being has rights, and who are we to say, just because we're older, that we get to murder it? Thank you.
There you go. That was a little tribute to Charlie Kirk, not put together by me. Lovely music added there, and he was saying lots of nice things rather than when he was saying that he wouldn't want to be on the plane with a black pilot. Yeah, there was more to him than that. If anyone wants to get in touch, the number is on the screen. You can WhatsApp me, call me, and I'll hold the phone up to the microphone and let you say your bit. Keir Starmer tweeted earlier on. Shall I try and do the impression? My thoughts this evening are with the loved ones of Charlie Kirk. It's heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and a husband. We must all be free. I'll abandon the. We must all be free to debate openly. Okay, so that's even Keir Starmer to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence. Yeah, look, I would agree with that. Again, someone I wouldn't normally agree much with. But yeah, good point. Johnny Jones, I'm sure Beach House are thrilled for their music to be used for that soon to be forgotten tin pot fascist. Was that Beach House music? I didn't know. Dazzler is saying, only been on here 2 minutes and can tell already you're a decent guy with a good channel. Keep up the good work. Oh, but lose the impression. Thank you very much, Dazzler. I appreciate that. Turn your mic up. Okay, yeah, thank you for the feedback on that. This is a trial run. I will try and turn the mic up. It is all for what happened. This is from Fangs. Really, I'm praying for his family. I wish people wouldn't spread lies about it, though. Just trying more people, just turning more people against each other, sadly. So yeah, thank you, FYM. What are the lies? What lies have been told about it, Mr. Fangs? What are the lies being told about the passing of Charlie Kirk? Very sensible Dazzler is off to bed. Yes, I think we should all probably get to bed soon. We'll wrap it up on the half-hour mark. But let's listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, who could barely wait to pass on his condolences for the passing of Charlie Kirk.
He said, he wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year. He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place, but he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate. He certainly didn't invite the violence, the horrible violence that tried to silence him. And this is a worldwide problem. The radical Islamists and their union with the ultra-progressives, they often speak about human rights, they speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies, whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or, they try to kill me here too, but they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. That's Benjamin Netanyahu revealing how heartbroken he is at the loss of Charlie Kirk. FYM saying, do I get the job? Sound quality control. Yes, FYM or FIM. Thank you. I will play around with the levels. I will try and do this again. As Tony Blair used to sing, things can only get better. Thanks for joining me, folks, and we'll do it all again soon, God willing. We were here and we are gone. Latest.